because so you'll see both of them. So yeah, go for it.
You can say whenever you're ready.
Whenever you're ready. Working as a medical volunteer at the Hospital St. Croix in Lagan, Paul Farmer got to know a young American doctor. The man had worked in Haiti for about a year. Now, in a few days, he was going back to the United States. Isn't it going to be hard to leave? He asked the young doctor. Are you kidding? I can't wait. There's no electricity here. It's just brutal here. But aren't you worried about not being able to forget all this? There's so much disease here. No, the doctor said. I'm an American, and I'm going home. How can someone just leave like that? Mountains Beyond Mountains, a biography by Tracy Kidder, follows Paul Farmer as he dedicates his life to the well-being of others. In a transitionless performance, the life of Paul Farmer will be accompanied by Human Rights, a poem by David Chalk which emphasizes the necessity of basic human rights. The Grapes of Wrath, a novel by John Steinbeck, which differentiates between those who have and those who have not. And finally, Night, a memoir by Elie Wiesel, which mirrors the apathy of giving back today. As a citizen of the United States, I ask you, what does it mean to be an American? And, more importantly, is it enough? How could a God just permit great misery? The Haitian peasants answered with a proverb. God gives, but doesn't share. This meant, as Farmer would later explain it, God gives us humans everything we need to flourish. But he's not the one who's supposed to divvy up the loot. That charge was on us. Later on that night, a young woman arrived at the hospital, pregnant, and in throes of malaria. Bad malaria. She went into a coma. And she needed a blood transfusion. And her sister was there. So there was no blood. And the doctor told her sister she would need money. I had no money. I ran around the hospital and I rounded up $15. I gave her the money and she went away. But then she came back. And she said it wasn't enough for both the tap-tap and the blood. So meanwhile, the patient started having respiratory distress, and this pink stuff started coming out of her mouth. The nurses were saying, it's hopeless. And other people were saying, we should do a cesarean delivery. I said, there's got to be some way to get her some blood. Her sister was beside herself. The woman has 5 kids. The sister said, this is terrible. You can't even get a blood transfusion if you're poor. And she said, we're all human beings. Farmer would say, clean water and health care and school and food and tin roofs and cement floors. All of these things should constitute a set of basics that people must have as birthrights. In a civilized land that accepts duty to all, citizens have rights. Some great, some small. This is how things should be to those who value truth and fairness and justice and decency. But those who treasure money and the power of wealth seek to remove such rights through deceit and stealth. They claim that duty comes before such rights, but they accept no obligation for causing another's plight. Obligation before rights is their loud refrain. But fulfilling their own duties is something they disdain. For rights are for the powerful, duties for the poor, and justice and decency, the country provides no more. Human rights matter to ensure justice for all, for saints and for sinners, for all people, great and small. The alternative is ugly, with justice a forgotten myth, with power replacing fairness, in a society that is truly sick. Farmer went on. I feel ambivalent about selling my services in a world where some cannot buy them. You can feel ambivalent about that because you should feel ambivalent. Once, California California belonged to Mexico and its land to Mexicans, and a horde of feverish Americans poured in. And such was their hunger for land that they took the land, took the grants and broke them up and growled and roared over them, those frantic, hungry men, and they guarded with guns the land they had stolen. Then, with time, the squatters were no longer squatters, but owners, and their children grew up and had children on the land, and the hunger was gone from them, the feral hunger, the gnawing, tearing hunger for land, for water and earth and the good sky over it. They had these things so completely that they did not know about them anymore. They had no more the stomach-churning lust for a rich acre and a shining blade to plow it. These things were lost, and crops were reckoned in dollars, and land was valued by principal plus interest, and crops were bought and sold before they were planted. And crop failure, drought, and flood were no longer little deaths within life, but simple losses of money. And all their love was thinned with money, and all their fierceness dribbled away in interest until they were no longer farmers at all, but little shopkeepers of crops, little manufacturers who must sell before they can make. And a homeless, hungry man driving the road with his wife beside him and his thin children in the back seat could look at the fallow fields, which might produce food, but not profit. And that man could know how a fallow field is a sin and the unused land a crime against the thin children. And such a man drove along the road and knew temptation in every field and knew the lust to take these fields and make them grow strength for his children and a little comfort for his wife. Temptation was before him always. And in the south, he saw the golden oranges hanging on the trees, the little golden oranges on the dark green trees, and guards with shotguns patrolling the lines so a man might not pick an orange for a thin child. Oranges to be dumped if the price was low. The world is full of miserable places. One way of living comfortably is not to think about them. Or, when you do, to send money. One day, when we had stopped, a workman took a piece of bread out of his bag and threw it into a wagon. There was a stampede. Dozens of starving men fought each other to the death for a few crumbs. The German workman took a lively interest in this spectacle. Some years later, I watched the same kind of scene at Aden. The passengers on our boat were amusing themselves by throwing coins to natives who were diving to get them. An attractive, aristocratic Parisian was deriving special pleasure from this game. I suddenly noticed 2 children were engaged in a death struggle, trying to strangle each other. I turned to the lady. "Please," I begged, "don't throw any more money in." "Why not?" she said. "I like to give charity." In the wagon, where the bread had fallen, a real battle had broken out. Men threw themselves on top of each other, stamping on each other, tearing at each other, biting each other. A piece fell into our wagon. Not far away, I noticed an old man dragging himself along on all fours. He was trying to disengage himself from the struggle. He held one hand to his heart. I thought at first he received a blow in the chest. Then I understood. He had a bit of bread under his shirt. With a remarkable speed, he drew it out and put it to his mouth. A smile lit up his dead face and was immediately extinguished. A shadow just loomed up near him. The shadow threw itself upon him, fell to the ground, stunned with blows. The young man cried, "My boy! Don't you recognize me? I'm your father! You're hurting me! You're killing your father! I've got some bread! For you too! For you too!" He collapsed. His fist was still clenched around a small piece. He tried to carry it to his mouth, but the other one threw himself upon him and snatched it. The old man again whispered something, let out a rattle, and died amid the general indifference. His son searched him, took the bread, and began to devour it. He was not able to get very far. 2 men had seen and hurled themselves upon him. Others joined in. When they withdrew, next to me, side by side, were 2 corpses, Father and the Son. And she said, we're all human beings. The words, Tutmoon Seimun, seemed like the answer to a question he'd asked himself earlier that day. Was being an American a sufficient identity unto itself? She said that again and again, remember, we're all human beings.